In this video I'm talking about meltdowns versus tantrums, why people get these confused, and what does that mean for the autism community. All that's coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to the Ask Me World. My name is Dan. I have autism, ADHD, OCD and dyslexia, and I make weekly videos on this type of content. So if you're new around here and you'd like to learn more, remember to hit that subscribe button by clicking the notification bell down below. And if you're watching over on Facebook, be sure to give this page a like and a follow to see more videos just like this one. Whoa, what's going on everybody? I wanted to do this video about meltdowns versus tantrums because I hear this constant, incessant confusion and sometimes completely wrong version of what's going on here. So I wanted to do a video on that to explain that a bit further and talk about it and dive really into that. Now, before we get into that, if you haven't already, please make sure to go and download my free ebook on autism life hacks. There will be a card at the end screen with a link there, with a link above here and in the description below, so you can go and check that out. Before we get into the video, I just want to say today's video is sponsored by Soundsory headphones for autism. Check this out. Soundsory programs help children and adults on the autism spectrum with sensory processing disorder and special educational needs. A company that's recommended by therapists and professionals globally, Soundsory is a multi-sensory music movement program. The Soundsory headphones are equipped with dynamic filters and bone conduction technology that helps improve motor skills and cognitive development in children and adults. So kind of like you put these on and then you like go through the list of programs and you take their like actual like so many days or so many weeks program, which you do every day, and then it tells you to do different stretches while listening to different music. I've tried this thing for like you know, however long I did it for. I think I did it for like a week and it was absolutely amazing. This thing actually really was fascinating, which is why I wanted to work with them again. I did a video with them before, but I wanted to do another one, and these guys kindly sponsored this video and I love it. So the Soundsory works on the fine, gross and visual motor skills in children, leading to enhancements in handwriting and drawing, balance and posture, and eye-hand coordination and sport-like skills. Now, Soundsory is designed to be safe and effective and is helping children on the autism spectrum with auditory sensory processing disorder and other developmental delays. Now, if you guys want to get your hands on one of these units, I will leave a link down below with a code, so you can actually get 10% off with the link if you want to purchase this from me down below. So I just want to talk about the program. So the program consists of a specially designed music processed with neuroacoustic modifications, as well as a series of movement-based exercises. It's a 40-day program divided into 2 sections of 20 days each, with a break of 1 month in between. Each day consists of 30 minutes of music and exercise. Soundsory helps improve fine gross motor skills in children and things like handwriting and balance and posture and hand-eye coordination, which is super awesome. You get 9 hours of battery time in these headphones when they're fully charged, and you also get access to the online exercise videos with an option to switch to Bluetooth mode and as a regular headset. You know, you can use these things as your daily kind of listeners, which is pretty cool because they're just super snazzy, super cool, and so you can actually use them as your Bluetooth headset for your phone, and you can also discreetly do your program. So that's super awesome. Please check them out. Like I said, link in the description below. You get 10% off with this and I highly recommend it. So meltdowns versus tantrums. This is a big one, right? I did a video pretty recently with a friend of mine called Russell, and Russell is an autism advocate, and he is autistic himself, and he did this video where we were talking about tantrums versus meltdowns and why people kind of don't know the difference. And I thought, well, maybe we should do a video on this channel explains to people what is the difference, right? So I have listed out here the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum, and we're going to get right into it right now. So there are many different kind of outbursts that an autistic person could have, right? It could be a shutdown, could be a meltdown, could be it could be a burnout. There's so many different things, right? Mostly important to most people is the meltdown, because the meltdown is the like the big thing that really rocks the boat for a lot of people, and that is something that is excessively difficult for people. You know, there's it's something that is causing somebody distress, and then it's a huge emotional outburst, and it's something that really rocks the boat. Now, a meltdown, we'll get into in a minute, is different from a tantrum, where people will often call meltdowns tantrums, right? And the meltdown is used as a term in other things as well. So sometimes people will use the term tantrum when they're actually talking about a meltdown, or they'll talk about a meltdown when actually it's a tantrum, and vice versa. So meltdown we're talking about in this video is a meltdown specifically on the autism spectrum, and the tantrum we're talking about in the neurotypical sense of when a child is acting in a certain way. So basically, a temper tantrum, which is the typical name given to this, is an emotional experience that happens when a child is unable to get something that they want, they desire, want to get their own way, they want to do something, but they're not allowed to do it, right? Maybe they want to get a toy, or they want to, do a situation their way, and the parents say no. So a tantrum is this like anger outburst because that child is feeling negatively impacted by the fact that they want to do something, they're not allowed to do it. And so how do they react to that? Well, because they're a child, they don't really know how to react to it. So the child kind of outbursts, explodes, kind of just thrashes about to see if creating a scene can rock the parents or the guardians or caregivers enough to help them sway the decision so that the child can win that conversation or that event, so that the child will get their own way. Now, it's not just children who do this. I've known of some adults who have, tantrums and things like this. And it's a very kind of interesting word to use, and I don't really like to use the word that often, but that is typically in the sense of tantrum, how a tantrum is arriving, this negative backlash for not being able to do something because you want it your way and somebody else wants it another way. That's the frustration of the child is kind of like oozing out in this kind of negative aggression, and it's built up and it's pent up and it's a big issue. And then the child will calm down from that, and then, a couple of hours later or even a couple of minutes later, the child is feeling better, tantrums out the window, they're going about the day, and that's what it is, because they can recover from it quickly because it's not a big issue. It's just something that happened where it's a learning process, a learning that you're not going to get everything your own way all the time, and that's absolutely fine. And unfortunately, that's the way of the world, and maybe that's a good thing. So, how does this differ from an autism meltdown? Well, an autism meltdown happens when a person who's experiencing a situation that is overwhelming for them. Maybe it's overwhelming sensory, maybe it's overwhelming because there's a change in the routine, maybe there's too many people there, maybe it's a social overwhelming, maybe they are in a store, there's loads of people, they're getting hot, there's a horrible smell in the air, and there's loud music playing, and this can just overwhelm the senses of somebody in the autism spectrum, and they kind of just explode, and it's like an emotional outpour because they are literally at their wit's end of trying to exist in that moment in time, in that event or situation, and it causes this meltdown to happen. Now that meltdown happens because they have no way of communicating how they feel or how they would like to react to something or what is going on, because it's just too much. It's like having a small cup and pouring like gallons and gallons of water in it. It's just going to spill over the top. It's just going to overflow. It's going to be too much to deal with, and that person on the spectrum has this overwhelming kind of urge to just lash out of their emotion because that's what happens. Now, having an autism meltdown is typically a regular or common occurrence for someone on the autism spectrum. It does not mean that the person is trying to get their own way. It does not mean that this person is spoiled, and it definitely does not mean that this person is trying to manipulate the situation. All it means is that that person at that moment in time definitely needs some added help or assistance to kind of calm down and come down. Now, after the meltdown does occur, the person will come back to kind of somewhere neutrality, and they'll come around a bit. But the autistic person will feel the effects of the meltdown that could last up to a couple of weeks, because that is so exhausting. It's like running a marathon, but for your emotions, and hyperventilating and all of that stuff. So it's not easy to recover from. There are ways to recover from it, and I do detail this in my some of the webinars and the courses that I teach. And if you're interested, check out the link down below for registering to get on my webinar. But in terms of having the meltdown really impact someone's life in a negative way, it has a long-lasting effect, and it will happen again and again, whereas a tantrum doesn't really have long-lasting effect, and it will only happen a couple of times until that situation is learned, or the person learns, or the child learns that that situation is never going to differ from that situation, and that's what the situation is. So yes, there is a big difference between a meltdown and a tantrum, because they're not the same thing. Autistic children may have tantrums but are more likely to have meltdowns, whereas neurotypical kids are going to have tantrums, and that's it. They're not going to have meltdowns, because the meltdown doesn't happen to neurotypical people because they're not having that sensory overload. They're not having that emotional and communicative outburst. They're not going to be susceptible to those environments, and that is the difference between meltdowns versus tantrums. Now, if you found that this video gave value, please share it on Facebook and Twitter. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment, and I'll see you next time, guys. Peace.